Hey guys, and welcome to Ozzie Reviews. Welcome to this month's Q&A. Now guys, we'll jump straight into the questions, but pretty simple. If you haven't seen this Q&A series before and you do want to become a part of it, then all you need to do is just simply jump onto Patreon and support me from as little as $1 a month. So look at it kind of like a magazine subscription, I guess. However, for as little as $1 a month, you can fire a heap of questions at me that will get answered in this monthly Q&A series. So let's jump straight into this month's questions. So the first question here is from Simon Hale. Now he says, hi Ozzie, love the reviews mate. My question for October Q&A is, what would your suggestion be for a scope? Power, objective size, first focal plane or second focal plane for my 300 Win Mag hunting rifle. I mainly use it for pigs and deer, and until now only ever out to approximately 200 yards, mainly due to buying and using cheap scopes and not trusting them. In brackets, I've seen the error of my ways. I'd really like to stretch its legs a bit further than that 200. Cheers. Well, Simon, mate, I guess it depends on what you're hunting. Really, I mean, as soon as someone says a hunting scope to me, I mean, for me, that's no further than about that 200. Because really, most of the game I've encountered is anywhere between like the 75, 125 yards, around there. If you're going to be shooting deer, well, obviously, that can be a little bit longer because they're very skittish and very alert animals. So sometimes you need to shoot that bit longer. You just can't get too close to them. So depending on what you want to do, for me, a hunting rifle is simply something that you can throw over your shoulder on a sling and be able to walk around quite comfortably with. So on that note, I would stay with a scope that's very lightweight. As for magnification size, look, anything like 3 to 9 by 40 is ample. And a lot of people do say, well, 9 power, will that get me out? Keep in mind, for many, many years, the US Marine Corps used fixed 10 power scopes on their 308 sniper platforms. And they're shooting out to 1,000 yards at 10 power. So, if you can't use 9 power and shoot at 200 to 300 or 400 yards, there's something seriously wrong. And that's why I'm really against, going up to like that sort of 16 power and stuff like that. Unless, of course, that's what your rifle platform is a long-range varmint type rifle. But on a hunting rifle, definitely not. I wouldn't be using anything over about 9 power. A lot of the newer scopes now, like you got 3.5 to 10 by 40s, perfect. You've got 10 power, but you've also got that lower magnification. So then when you've got to take faster follow-up shots, and you're not going to lose your sight picture when you're scanning for game, looking through that scope and and shooting when they're on the run. Look, you'll be able to bring it down to 5 or 6 power there and be able to do the job perfectly. So yeah, I wouldn't be going for anything over that. That's my personal take on it. I'd honestly say, like, go for a 1 to 6 by 40 or something like that, because it's ideal. But if you want to start shooting out over 200 and have a little bit of fun, I guess maybe you might go to a range as well and just have a bit of fun shooting over that 200. Go up to like a 3 to 9 or 3.5 to 10. That will be ample. As for like first focal plane and second focal plane, look, it really doesn't matter too much in a hunting scenario for what you're doing there. Look, there's another question that I've got to talk about here from another viewer about first focal plane and second focal plane scopes. I'll explain it a little bit more when I answer that. But specifically answering you, Simon, I wouldn't really worry too much. I mean, the only time that the second focal plane really becomes quite a problem is when you've got bullet drop compensators, where you can't use that on different magnification. You've just got to stick to one magnification and work out where the bullet drop is. Okay, so hopefully that answers your question there. Now the next question I've got here is from Luke Sanders, and he asks, hi Ozzie, hope all is well mate. I'm looking at buying my first rifle. I'm tossing up between a 22 LR or a 17 HMR. What's your opinion? I want to use it for rabbits and foxes and also some target shooting. I think ultimately and eventually I would like to get both, but can't just yet. Not sure where to start. Thanks and regards, Luke. Mate, look, I think most people will know what I'm going to say here. 22 LR, I'm a big fan of them. Look, the 17 HMR, look, it's certainly got its purpose, and it's not a bad cartridge. What you really got to look at, and for a first rifle, is the 22 LR is so economical to run. You're going to be paying 2 to 3 times the price for the 17 HMR. So if you just go to a range and you're with a few friends and you want to have a shot and share the experience with them, you'll be at the range and you just won't be able to put the amount of rounds down range as what you will be able to do with the 22 LR. So and the 22 gives you so much more variety with ammunition. So for example, if you've got I don't know, an area you might be going out and just shooting or plinking on a private property somewhere. Now, you can just get standard ammo or subsonic ammo for that 22 and keep the noise right down if that is a factor. Then you can go up to your high velocity hunting ammunition should you want to go out and, like you say here, use it for rabbits, foxes and stuff like that. Now, keep in mind, no matter what you do when it comes to a fox, whether you're using a 17 HMR or a 22 LR, look, I've taken countless foxes with 22 LR. All it comes down to is shot placement, okay? So what you need to do is you need to make sure it is an ethical headshot, and you're really not going to be shooting over about that 100-yard mark with a 22. The 17 HMR is certainly going to have a lot more energy at 100 than the 22 will. So if you were specifically just wanting something for foxes, then yeah, I'd probably say, look, maybe a 17 HMR, because obviously you're not going to be shooting round after round after round with it. Where here you're talking about rabbits and some target shooting. So I'd lean more to the 22, only because of the variety of ammunition. Can suit so many purposes with it, and ultimately it's 2 to 3 times cheaper to run. If you do want to later on go down the track and get a 17 HMR, by all means do that, but I'd definitely go for the 22 LR for those reasons. Now the next question I've got here is from John Economides, and he's asking about the first focal plane and second focal plane scopes. So he says, in a second focal plane scope, if one was to sight in and be dead on at 100 meters or 100 yards using 3 power, if they then dialed into say 12 power, would the projectile's point of impact change, or would it still be dead on regardless of the magnification? I believe in a first focal plane scope, the point of impact would be the same irrespective of the magnification that the scope is dialed into. Could you possibly shed some light on this, please? Cheers and thanks in advance. Okay, mate, they're basically the same in regards to point of impact. If you're using just the standard crosshair. So if you go to, and we should explain a little bit for anyone who's listening here, so first focal plane scope means that as you change the magnification, the reticle size will also change to accommodate that magnification. If you're using a second focal plane scope, well, it doesn't. The reticle stays the same size regardless of the magnification. So what's the benefits to both of them? Obviously, the second focal plane scopes are a bit cheaper, okay? They're fine if you are just using a standard hunting crosshair. So what I'm talking about is just your normal crosshair, okay? There's no bullet drop compensators on it, just a normal crosshair. It's really not going to matter all that much, because whatever magnification you got on, I mean, the dead center of that crosshair should stay the same, okay, no matter what magnification you've got. But there's another little tangent to that. If you're using a high quality scope, it should be pretty much right on. Once you start using a lot of cheaper scopes, you can find that there is a shift in that point of impact as you change through the magnification. So if you go from the extreme low end to the extreme high end, don't be surprised if there's just a smidgen of shift, okay? And that comes down to the quality of the optic. That's why I always say put quality optics on top of your firearms. That's why I don't like Filipino made scopes, and I don't like Chinese made scopes. As a bare minimum, I will always use Japanese made scopes, and then obviously American made scopes, but ideally is the European made scopes. But obviously everyone's budget depends on what you can afford at the time. So look, getting back to it, if you've got a bullet drop compensator, so what I mean by that is when you've got your crosshair, there may be some hash marks underneath it or some dots, that are your bullet drop compensators. Now some reticles have that for various different calibers, and some reticles have it, just for a fixed caliber at different distances. So for example, things common like 223 and 308 in a lot of military type scopes, will have those drop compensators, and then you'll see that in the commercial market as well. The problem with a second focal plane scope is if you're using any of those reticles with a bullet drop compensator, you need to use one power, okay, and then work out where that bullet drop is from there. Because as soon as you change the power, because the reticle isn't changing size with the magnification, so all of a sudden, say you're first on your crosshair, say your first bullet drop compensator down, okay? So for example, hypothetically, let's say that it's a 3 to 9 power scope, second focal plane. So that first bullet drop compensator may be right on at, say, like 200 yards, for example, okay? So on 9 power, you're sighted in there at 100, and that first drop compensator is right on at 200, okay? Now if you then go back, okay, to like 3 power or something like that, or 6 power, something else other than the 9 power, on a second focal plane scope, that first bullet drop compensator, the distance between the center of the crosshair and that first bullet drop compensator mark will not change, okay, because it doesn't change the reticle size on a second focal plane scope. So obviously you're going to be way out. It's not going to be the same as if you're using a first focal plane scope, if that makes sense. So yeah, sorry to sort of waffle on a little bit about it there, mate, but I'm just hoping that I've explained it well enough. What you've got to keep in mind though is a lot of people who use any bullet drop compensators like that usually will be using it on the highest magnification of the scope. So really, if you wanted to save some money and you wanted to get into a second focal plane scope that had a bullet drop compensator on it, if you're going to use it at the maximum power, to utilize those bullet drop compensators, so for example 9 power or 16 power, whatever the scope may be, and then whenever you go back to like just normal hunting and you wind it back to say 6 power, 5 power, 4 power, and you're just using the center of that reticle anyway, it's not really going to matter that much to you. So hopefully I haven't confused you there, but the bottom line is, which do I like personally? Look, definitely first focal plane with a target type varmint setup, because no matter the magnification, I want that reticle to change and everything to marry up. However, look, second focal plane scope, it just depends on what your needs are, and if you're happy with just using those bullet drop compensators at that maximum magnification, they're fine. Or if you don't even care about any bullet drop compensators and you just want to get a standard crosshair there, by all means, there's nothing wrong whatsoever with a second focal plane scope, and you'll actually find that they're a little bit cheaper than the first focal plane. Now the next question here is some F-tops. He says, hey Ozzie, I recently found a Sportco Model 44 Omark rifle in 7.62x51. The rifle is being given to me by a friend whose grandfather is cleaning out his safe. It's missing a rear sight and is a single shot. My questions are, number one, have you had any experience with these rifles? Very minimal. I do know the rifle, but I've never owned one. And two, I was thinking of either giving it to a F-class shooter who would appreciate a classic accurate rifle, or to a museum because it was a training rifle for the army. Mainly because there are restrictions on the number of Cat B rifles you can have in the same caliber, and I already own a 308. Do you think I should sell it or give it to a new shooter who doesn't have a large amount of money to spend, or give it to an organisation like an RSL branch? Cheers, sorry for the long question. Okay, let's clarify one thing first, mate. You can own a number of different firearms of the same caliber. All you need to do is justify it. So for example, that particular rifle would be something that you could use for competition long range shooting, okay? It wouldn't be something that you'd be using for hunting. So when you put in for your PTA, you simply say a long range target setup, that you don't have another rifle for that purpose because your other rifle might be for hunting. Then you might have a rifle where you're using it with open sights, but you want to set up another one with a telescopic sight on it. just stuff like that. It's very easy to justify, put it that way, because it's practical at the end of the day. So look, if you really like the rifle, firstly I'd say don't sell it. You know, hang on to it, have a play with it. You know, see if you can get that, was it the rear sight, I think it was. Yeah, get the rear sight fixed, or see if you can get a replacement there, and just, you know, see how it goes for you. Otherwise, look, by all means, sell it. If you don't want it, you know, on-sell it there, get a few dollars for it, and you can put that into something else. Now the next question here is from Michael. He says, have you seen the new app by Bongo Ralph, sorry, called Ozgunlaws? Will you review it? Yes, I have seen the app. Probably not something I'd review, mate. The only reason is it's very hard for me to be able to film like my iPhone, you know, and get it in the sort of clarity that would be needed to actually do a review on it. So, yep, do know it, but at this stage I wouldn't be reviewing it. Now the next question here is from Jace. Now he asks my opinion on the 7mm08, pros and cons, and is it worth getting over a 308? Mate, look, good question there. I used to use a 7mm08, and look, it was extremely expensive to buy ammunition for. Like, I'm talking twice the price of 308. What are the pros? The cons, look, it's lower recoil. It's got a very high BC, the 7mm08. You know, they do talk about it about being a ladies 308 because there is significantly less recoil with it. So it's quite comfortable to use. So if you are recoil sensitive, and you know, this isn't a place for egos to get in the way, if you are legitimately recoil sensitive and you just don't like heavy recoil, by all means, it is a very good caliber, and there's nothing that a 308 can do that you can't do with a 7mm08. You know, like there's countless amounts of game that you can take with a 7mm08. You can shoot at long range, you know, you can get different match projectiles for it, stuff like that. So if you were reloading, it'd probably be more of a benefit, but if you're not, definitely not, because it's so expensive to run. Now the other thing you've got to keep in mind too is the availability of ammunition. So say for example, like, you know, you went out on a hunting trip somewhere and you've run out of ammunition, and then you go into the local gun store. I can assure you there's going to be 10 times more chance that you're going to be able to find 308 ammunition on the shelf there as opposed to 7mm08. Okay, and also the choice of factory ammunition is much wider in 308 than what it is in 7mm08. On top of it as well, guys, look, I'm a big fan of 308. You know, I just really, for the price, I just don't think the 7mm08 is worth it, unless of course you had a specific reason to be using it, you know, like there was a match or something that you really required that over 308, because really there's nothing that each caliber can't do, you know, they're just so similar, it's unbelievable. So look, up to you at the end of the day, Jace, but personally I'd probably just stick to 308, unless of course you just want something a little bit different and you're happy to pay that extra price, and you'd like the lower recoil, by all means go for the 7mm08. Now the last set of questions I've got here is from Cam, and he says, can you provide some professional notes around rifle shooting skills and general rifle usage tips at ranges and in hunting? For example, low altitude, high altitude shooting, and shooting within thick scrubs and over water, etc. Mate, look, that's probably too open-ended. Like, that's just so much information to be able to just put into a video. You know, I was doing that hunting and field skills course with Southern Shooters there a couple of years ago down in Adelaide. There's been a lot of requests from people for me to run something like that up here in Queensland. However, it's just finding somewhere where I can do it, and then there's obviously all the legal aspects of it, insurances and stuff like that, so it's not something I can do anytime soon. Maybe in the beginner series of the videos I could possibly do something on just different shooting techniques, you know, with shooting off the bench, shooting off the shoulder, that sort of thing. But there's only so much I can do on a video. You know, you really need to be in person with someone to be able to pick up things that they're doing wrong, and be able to correct different things to make their shooting a lot better. So yeah, probably not anything in that regard anytime soon. The next question you've got here is, can you provide some detailed comparison of low-end rifles and high-end rifles side by side, showing the good, the bad, the ugly? Well, mate, all you have to do is just have a look at my reviews. I mean, you know, go to a low-end rifle. Let's have a look at like Savage. You know, they're really cheap. You know, and I definitely show the good, the bad, the ugly with them. Have a look through them and then just compare them to any of the higher end rifles that you know, I've reviewed, you know, like Anschutz, Seiko, that sort of stuff. And I definitely show all the good, bad and ugly with them as well. So yeah, I probably wouldn't be able to do it side by side, because what you've got to keep in mind is I don't have hundreds of firearms. I turn over firearms very, very quickly. So a lot of the time, apart from just, you know, firearms that I've bought and kept myself, a lot of the time I'm reselling a lot of firearms because I need to make way to be able to purchase more to do these reviews. So you know, the only way that you can do the comparison there is have a look at the individual reviews yourself, because I just don't have all those firearms that I've reviewed on hand at the same time to be able to put them side by side to compare them. So I hope that answers your question. Okay guys, so that's it for October Q&A. Thanks very much for the questions, and you know, this is becoming quite a popular series. I really appreciate those guys out there who support me and who offer these questions each month. So if you want to become a part of it, as I say, jump onto Patreon and you're more than welcome to fire as many questions as you want at me in these Q&A series. Okay guys, we'll catch you in the next month's edition.